name's Leanne. I am a makeup artist from West Yorkshire and mum to an 11-year-old boy. I am a triple negative breast cancer survivor. I think for me, if it wasn't for the fact that I had cysts, I might not have gone. I probably would have done, but it was, this one felt different to other ones that I had when they said they were cysts. It just felt different. I just assumed that breast cancer was breast cancer. I thought it was just blanketed in terms of everyone had the same breast cancer. And to be honest, it weren't something that I'd ever thought about before. So, my naivety towards it, was strong really. I didn't know anything about it. Yeah, so I contacted my GP, which is literally across the road, to be fair, on the Monday. I was seen on the Monday afternoon, luckily. And then 2 weeks later, I got my appointment through a few days afterwards for a checkup at the breast clinic 2 weeks later. I had a feeling it was. I don't know why. I just had a feeling because it felt so different. So my mum came with me to the hospital, to the breast clinic, because I was just a little bit nervous. When I got there, I was examined and then I was taken into a room. I had a mammogram. I had biopsies as well, which I then started to think, I can't remember this happening before. And at this point, I started to worry a little bit. We were in there hours, to be honest, about 3 hours all in all. And then when I was finally called back in to see the consultant, when I walked into the room, there was nurses in there as well. So I just knew at that point. So I remember him looking at the consultant and him telling me that I had breast cancer. I can't remember anything else at that point, because everything, when you see on a film and it's the loud ringing in the ears and things like that, it felt like that. And then I came round a little bit and he asked if I had any questions. The first thing I said, where am I going to die? Yeah. Because that I had, I was thinking of my son. He's only 11, sorry. He's only 11, so it was just quite scary at that point. But yeah, so, and he said, no, we can treat it. It's, you've caught it early, which was good. At this point, he told me he didn't know what type of breast cancer it was. So for me, that was a bit, there's different kinds of breast cancer. That was the first entry point, if you like, for me understanding a little bit more about cancer and knowing that the cancer that I had, or that I would eventually be diagnosed with, was the most, aggressive type of cancer, breast cancer. They had to send the biopsies away to be tested to see what type of breast cancer it was, and had to wait a grueling 2 weeks to find out what type it was, and then to be given the treatment, because different breast cancers are treated differently. So yeah, the 2 weeks waiting was horrendous. No, because the consultant had said to me as well, it will more than likely be radiotherapy and an operation. And I thought, I can deal with that, no chemo. Because for me, that was the biggest thing. I think losing my hair, one of the biggest things that I didn't want to lose my hair, didn't want to look different. And there were just so many things going through my mind within that 2 week, life-changing things. Am I going to be okay? What's going to happen next? I didn't know what treatment were going to look like. Obviously, I'd heard about chemo, so that was frightening me a little bit. 2 weeks later, I went back to the hospital where I was told I had triple negative breast cancer and what the treatment could possibly look like. At this point, when I went to the consultant, they still don't know, because that was for the oncologist to tell me. So I then had an appointment with the oncologist, I think it was 4 days later. So there's a lot of waiting about, a lot of time to think. at this point anyway. It felt that initially, it's not a lot of time actually, it's quick, but to me, I just wanted to understand, to get on with it, to start treatment, because the waiting around was, it was quite nerve-wracking, to be honest. So with family, my mum was at the hospital with me, so she knew, obviously, straight away. My dad, I told my dad when I got home, and he was heartbroken. My sister was, partner obviously as well. And we just needed to work out how we were going to tell my son, because he's only 11. Sorry, I get upset when I talk about this bit. So, we had to speak to him. And he was fine. I just needed to know what was going to happen. I needed to know the treatment and step by step everything before I told him. So we waited to tell him until I got my full treatment plan, because he would have asked too many questions that I wouldn't have known the answers to. So yeah, my partner obviously worked. That was his main thing. My mum, bless her, she came and cleaned, cooked, brought food, did my ironing, and every single week she'd buy me a bunch of flowers just to cheer me up, especially when I was on chemo. My sister was an absolute angel as well. She took the dogs, because I couldn't look after, there were times when, I would just not, I couldn't walk them, things like that, and my son and things like that. She took care of him as well for me while I were, on my bad days and things, and just kept him occupied and all that. My dad, bless him, he had all intentions of helping and supporting, but I think we helped each other in other ways rather than, that side of things. I think for me, that was probably the most comforting thing, to know that I've got people around me, and you don't realise how much people love you, really, I suppose, and want to do things for you. And I think that for me was when I was saying take the help. It's hard to accept help sometimes, but it does make life so much easier if you do. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer in the March. My dad instantly retired to support me, really. And then a few weeks later, he was also diagnosed with cancer. He had esophagus cancer. So yeah, year from hell. We had one of the times where we were sat in the same chemo ward having chemo together. And I remember the nurses just saying, oh my God, we've never seen this before. But yeah, it was bittersweet, really. I'm glad we got to experience it together, because we could support each other in some ways. But at the same time, nobody wants to see someone else going through it at the same time, especially Dad. We'd go for walks. We'd always go on a certain walk. And when it was just us two, we could just, I'm quite lucky to live in an area where we've got a lot of fields and things like that to take the dogs out. So we'd just go out walking and have a good old moan about everything when we felt up to it, not all the time. But if our treatment aligned where we both felt okay at the same time, we'd go on walks just to chat, really, and it just made you feel so much better. We did vent as well, a lot, But at the same time, we've both got a good sense of humour, so we got through that. We'd look at each other sometimes and just say, what's going on? How? What are the chances? So just mental, crazy. Friends, oh, gosh, I'll get upset again with friends. Amazing. I even had friends that I've not seen that you lose contact with through no fault of anyone's, but we've reconnected again, and we see each other now, which is crazy. They all chipped in for a hair topper for me, which again I wouldn't have been able to probably afford on my own. So that was lovely. When I was told about chemotherapy, my instant thought was I'm going to lose my hair, and I don't want to. And my son, it weren't funny at the time, but I can look back and laugh now, because he did inspire me to do it. He said, "You're not going to go bald, are you?" And I said, well, I could do, and I think he was a little bit mortified. He's at that age of 11 where street cred is, the thing. So for me, it was important that I didn't want to look ill, if that makes sense. And you know, for me, an important part of the journey was keeping my hair and, you know, doing that for my son as well as me. So I decided to call CAP. I researched it and my hospital did offer it, which I think most hospitals do now, which was great. I did hear a lot of stories saying it wouldn't work, you know, it's really painful, that sort of thing. But personally, I found it okay. And yeah, I battled through. It took some of my hair, it shedded some of my hair, and I do wear a topper now just to, you know, give myself a little bit of thickness to the hair and things. But all in all, it 100% worked for me, which I was so happy about, to be honest. Yeah, you can try it once. If it's not for you, then just don't continue with it. The only thing that I would say is it does put time onto treatments, because you will need to wear it for 1 hour before treatment, then during treatment, and then an hour afterwards as well. So it does put a couple of hours onto your treatment. But if it matters to you to keep your hair, then 100% do it. I basically filmed my journey. So a lot of my time in hospital was filming things, you know, looking at other people that were sharing the same journey as me, really. And I just used it as some time to connect with people that were going through the same thing. I didn't have the concentration to sit and colour or anything because of the steroids that they give you. It can make you a little bit energetic, if that makes sense, whilst you're having chemo. Well, it did for me anyway. So I just used that time to connect with people online, especially through, you know, social media. Honestly, when you are going through chemo, you lose yourself a little bit. Eyebrows, lashes, your face can, you know, swell because of the steroids and things. And I just wanted to help people through makeup as well and staying positive while sharing my journey and being, you know, 100% authentic in everything that I was sharing as well. And it just seemed to take off and work. I've met some amazing people along the way that we've walked side by side, literally, and we're still doing it now. So it's been really good to connect with people. And I would say for me, the TikTok part of it was something that got me through it. I mean, obviously you guys reached out on there as well, which was good, because friends and family are great. And I couldn't have wished for better friends and family, but to have someone that's literally going through that same journey with breast cancer, or the same type of breast cancer, that's having chemo on that same day as you are or whatever, it was just comforting really to know. I think for me, chemo was the hardest part of the journey, absolutely. The other parts was very tough, but not as tough as chemo. So once I'd finished that side of the journey and had my operation and started to, you know, feel better and things, I thought, you know what, there's so many people going through this that I'd like to help them feel a little bit better, because the main part is looking in the mirror and not seeing the person that you were before, and that can be quite upsetting. So I just wanted to give something back, basically, and help people just feel a bit better, just for, and I don't know, a few hours out of the day. So I just started posting to see if anybody would want to come along and get the makeup done by me, and obviously free of charge, and just a nice little pamper. I think if anyone's, you know, going through something similar, I would always advise them to try not to pay attention to the negative. Try and keep to the positive, and I think that's one of the things that helped me through. Find something that brings a little bit of joy to yourself, whether, you know, for me it was makeup, whether that's a little bit of cooking or whatever. You know, try and find that, especially when you're going through chemo, because the days can sometimes be a little bit dark, but also there's good days where you do feel up to doing things. So always find something that you enjoy to do. If you're not that type of person to go to those support groups, then go on TikTok. There's a whole community out there of triple negative breast cancer warriors, so to speak, that are there ready to support everybody. And I honestly, you cannot wish for women supporting women as much as what I've found on there, definitely.